Hey, everybody. Welcome to Grilling at the Green here in Portland on AM 60 and Seattle and in the sundry other stations around the country, and also the Golf News Network on the iHeart um, radio app network. As you know, Golf News Net is 24/7 golf channel now on there. We'd like to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef for supporting this show. As always, it's the beef the way nature intended. Well, I've got a real treat for you today. It's been a couple months in the making, but I've got Gordon Moir. He's the former director of greenskeeping at St. Andrews. That includes the old course, the Eden course. There's a lot of courses there. Some I didn't even know about, and we're going to talk to Gordon about that. But first and foremost, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. Looking
Not a
forward to it.
problem. Not a problem. Um, Before we talk about the different courses and stuff, uh, Gordon, is this something you wanted to do in your life as a young man, or did you find this kind of to be your calling going forward, as it were?
Well, I hope people can understand my accent, and I'll try and talk slowly so that it'll help a little bit. It's quite strange. I never really thought of getting into greenkeeping. I was born and brought up on a farm. My folks owned a farm, and although I did quite well at school, I had no idea what I wanted to be or wanted to do with my life. And I ended up working the farm when I left school. But by that time, I was completely hooked in the game of golf. And starting working the farm, I never actually got a chance to play anymore. So when the local golf club at Fraserburgh, where I was born and brought up, offered me the chance to join the green staff, and they would put me to college, I sort of jumped at that chance. And by that time, all my friends were at university or college and having the time of their lives. And I thought I was wanting some of that, and really just it just evolved from there.
Yeah, I can imagine. You probably fit in pretty well, though, if you grew up on a farm like I did, and you went into turf management. I don't know what they call it over in Scotland. They have different names for it around, something in the agrarian sector, you might say. But that must have been kind of a natural fit for you in a way.
Well, yeah, I mean, as regards manual labour, operating tractors and machinery, I was quite used to that. And the fact it allowed me to play golf and go and visit other golf courses and such like that was pretty appealing. So that was, and the farm at the end of the day, it was a family farm, and it was never going to come to me. So I thought I would cut my losses and look for something different.
Good man, Gordon. Good man. What you didn't end up, I mean, you didn't start out, I should say, at St. Andrews. There was a process to get there. You had a wife by that time and that, but do you remember your first job and how different that job is from where you ended up before you retired at St. Andrews?
No, absolutely. I mean, I started off at my hometown club, which was Fraserburgh Golf Club, which is it's a really nice, understated links. It's about 100 miles north of St Andrews, about 35 miles north of Aberdeen. So I started there. It was quite a community club, mostly local members. We didn't get too many visitors, um, and quite enjoyed there. Now, and I went through the ranks there very quickly, actually. And after 4 years, I was promoted to head greenkeeper, and I stayed there for another 9 years.
Yeah.
I was actually no, I think another 11 years. And family was I had a couple of kids, and we wanted a better sort of area to bring them up. And I started applying for jobs in different places, and one came up at St Andrews, and I thought I would just throw my hat in the ring, and was lucky enough to get a position as a head greenkeeper at one of the courses down here, the Eden course initially.
Now that's a big transition from your home course to going to St. Andrews, and not just on the aspect of the history and the golf at St. Andrews, but also it's a big deal when you come home and have to tell your wife that you think you're going to take the job at St. Andrews, 100 miles south of you, or give or take a few, and you do all that. I mean, tell us a little bit, as much as you want to, about those discussions and at the kitchen table with your wife. I'm sure you were excited about it because, St. Andrews is like the mecca of golf, of course. But what did your wife think of all that when you first started?
Well, although Pauline's not a golfer, she understood the history and the esteem at St Andrews is held in around the world. So from that point of view, it was good. And it was less than 3 hours drive from where we're living and from where her folks lived. So it wasn't too difficult a decision to make. It was better than some of the other jobs I had looked at and had applied for. And actually, I'd turned down a couple of jobs, but they were both actually in England. So this was certainly a lot more appealing to Pauline than going to England was, and for me.
Do you remember your first day when you actually had the job? I mean, you'd been to St. Andrews before, but the first day you walked in, that
Yeah.
must that must have been kind of a real experience. I don't know how to
Well, I
describe it.
mean, the whole place was just so different. As I said, Fraserburgh was very much a community club. I mean, I knew almost every member, um, and I played a lot of golf there, and I played a lot of golf with them. But in St Andrews, there are 9 clubs, and so many visitors, and I really didn't. Apart from a few green staff, I really didn't do a soul. But my first day was a bit of an eye opener, shall we say, because I turned up and was told to go and have a walk around my course and come back at 9 o'clock, and I would meet my staff. And I did wonder why was I not getting to meet my staff at 6 o'clock, and why were they not out doing stuff on the golf course? But in fact, they were all working on the old course that morning because there was a competition on.
Ah,
So I was left. I was left on my own golf course on my own to find my way around.
well, uh, in a way, that's probably a good thing. Do a little exploring, you know.
Yeah, because I really didn't know the golf course that well. I'd walked a part of it briefly when I was down for the interview, and I'd played it once, maybe about 6 years prior, and there'd been a few changes in that time, so it did give me a chance to go and find my way around. But I had to walk, I had to I had to cross the new course and the old course to actually get to the first tee of the Eden course.
Oh
So
boy.
it took you quite a while to get there in the mornings from the maintenance facility.
How many is there 7 courses there now?
There are now. There are
Yeah.
now. Back then there were only 4. Um, there was another 27 holes built, but they were just being grown in.
Yeah.
So yeah, six. There's actually technically there's 6.5 golf courses.
Six.
One of the courses is 9 holes.
That kind of sounds like my golf game. 6.5. You know, I think that's really interesting. It must have been something, Gordon, when you walked in every day. I mean, I came out of another industry many years ago, and I know that when you went to the, if you will, the meccas of that, I was in the horse business, but like if you went to Churchill Downs where they just had the Derby, when you walked in there, it didn't matter what day or time of year it was. You were just kind of in awe always when you went there. You couldn't help it. Was that the way you felt at St. Andrews?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, initially I would either walk or not walk, I'd either drive or cycle across Granny Clark's Wynd in the morning, and to get to the maintenance facilities. So yeah, it was every morning when you looked up and you saw the clubhouse behind the first tee there, and you soon got to meet visitors, and everybody was just so excited at getting the opportunity to play there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Gordon Moir. We're going to talk more about his book. We haven't talked much about it yet, but we will. St. Andrews, The Greenkeeper's Tale, looking after the most famous golf course in the world. Like I said, Gordon is the author of that. He's got a kind of a cool picture in the front there. Um, can I borrow those for my lawn? Those things on the cover of the book there?
It was quite a funny story about the cover of the book
Yeah,
when it
well,
was going
we'll
to
talk
print.
about that when we come back from break, Gordon. Anyway, you're listening to Grilling at the Green. Gordon and I will be back in just a minute. Don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. um, we're talking with Gordon Moyer today. And Gordon and I actually met through LinkedIn, and you know, I've started to become, Gordon, more of a fan of social media to a bit, because I've met some nice people, you being one of them. Um, but I just find that really interesting that we met on there. The name of the book, by the way, is the Green Keepers. I want to add an S in the middle there. That's the American version, I guess,
Yeah.
Gordon. The Green Keeper's Tale. We were talking about the cover of the book. Now you've got, are those Toro products? They look like Toro products.
Yeah. There's a couple of Toro products in the front of the book because we've always had a long association with Toro since before I went to the Links. Um, so yeah, when we were devising the cover, I left it to the publishing company, and they sent me up a draft. Um, I kind of suggested a few things. I mean, they sent me up this draft, and they only had a couple of John Deere pieces of equipment on the front there, and they couldn't understand when I got back to them and said, no, that's totally inappropriate. And then, without asking, they then went and produced another cover, and they put in a couple of Jacobson
Oh my.
tough machinery. So I had to go and speak to Toro, and I got a couple of images off of their website and got their permission to use them. So
Oh, good. Good. That makes me think of, um in the book you talk about getting there, and really to me it was like when you got there and you kind of described the equipment they had, which I was surprised. Now I know that was 20 odd years ago, but I was really surprised at the kind of the lack in your description of some of the equipment and things that you had access to. Um, what did you think? I mean, I know how you described it in the book, but what did you think? Did you get, oh my God, I can't believe this?
yeah, because I never really did a lot of research before I started. I did go down one day and have a brief look at the sheds. I was down looking for housing and trying to find accommodation, and I went in past the maintenance facility to have a look, and I did sort of open my eyes then. But when I actually arrived and saw how little equipment I had, and the condition of the equipment, how old it was. But back in 1991, the Links Trust had very little in the way of reserves. They had
Yeah.
very little money, and they were having to go and beg, steal, and borrow a lot of kit. So it was only maybe 4 or 5 years after that, so they sort of had a strategic plan which kind of made them some cash, and things improved dramatically. But initially, it was hard going.
Well, did they still think they were back in the days of Tom Morris, old Tom Morris, out there pulling the gorch with your bare hands or something, or
Well,
what?
I think no, because the trust it is or was more run by volunteers
Mm-hmm.
who really had no business acumen about the golf business. Um, so the tour operators, I mean, golf tourism was taken off really
Sure,
well, and the tour operators were buying up the tee times at cost price and marking them up, 100%, 200%, 300%,
sure.
and all the links were getting was the very basic green fee. Um, and the tour operators were growing very wealthy off of it.
Always,
So
yeah.
then they twigged and then started, putting up the prices themselves to tour operators. And
When you let the word get out, Gordon, I mean, we said that you work with Toro and that, but when you let the word get out that you were, and you talk about this in the book so much, that you were looking to, upgrade your equipment, and it wasn't a big move right out of the gate, as you said, you kind of gradually worked into
yeah,
this. But when the word got out, did the companies kind of jump at the chance to come do presentations or let you work with a piece of equipment for a week and see how you liked it, or how did that work
yeah,
out?
yeah, very much so. The three main players, well, probably four in those days, because Ransoms and Jacobson were still separate entities,
Yeah.
and because Ransoms was a British company, we did tend to favour a lot of their equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they were all keen to get involved, and yeah, we had a lot of trials. It was very difficult to get. We wanted to get a piece of kit in for a minimum of 6 weeks, so everybody in the different teams could get the opportunity to try it, and then trying to find a consensus of which piece of kit was best was it was quite an ordeal,
I
and we
bet
went
it.
through that we went through that process 3 or 4 times in my in my time at the links.
Did you find that after you guys decided on Toro and you were working with them over a period of time, they became more receptive to maybe giving you benefits and perks? I mean, in the States, that's what they do. Okay. If they're going to make a pitch to a big course or a country club or something, they come in and they present the equipment or they bring it out there. And when I say perks, I don't mean going to Manhattan to watch a concert, but I mean perks like if you did this, you get extra pieces of equipment or certain attachments, what have you, with that piece of equipment.
Yeah, yeah, and to be fair, all the companies had their offers were all slightly different, and
Sure.
it was difficult to to compare to compare different offers because you weren't comparing apples with apples, and as well. Although we did prefer the Toro equipment, I think overall, some of the other companies did have some pieces of kit which were better.
Yeah.
We did say to Toro, okay, but we don't want that particular item. We want to go to another manufacturer, not necessarily Jacobson or John Deere, perhaps small individual company.
Mm-hmm.
So we did do that in the end. But yeah, they all offered things to the benefit, and it had to work for the trustees and for the management team as well as the greenkeepers. The price had to be right.
Well, yeah, the price had to be right, but I can't, from a company perspective, and we're going to take a break here in a minute and move on with some other stuff. But I'm just thinking to have your equipment at some places, St. Andrews, and you can actually get pictures of it with your staff or whatever using the Toro green roller or whatever. That's a gold mine for them. It's just a gold mine.
Absolutely, and all that type of stuff was laid out in the agreement.
Sure, sure. We're talking with Gordon Moir here, whose new book, and I recommend it. And I'm going to see if we can get more of them in this country. It's called St. Andrews, the Greenkeeper's Tale, looking after the most famous golf course in the world. And like I said, we've got Gordon Moir with us here today. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back grilling at the green right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm Jeff Tracy. We thank you for listening. We'd like to thank everybody. Normally, Gordon, I did it in the last segment, but I'm doing it this one to make good on it. We do this little thing called a golf trip travel tips. Say that 5 times fast. But you're a well-traveled person. I know just from the book you've been all over. What would be your number one travel tip for people? And if you're packing your golf clubs or you're planning a golf trip.
Oh boy, if you're packing, you go. Well, I always worry when I land at the other side if my golf clubs are going to be on that airplane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the last trip I actually bought an air tag to put in my clubs. I don't know what good it would have done me. It would have told me where my clubs were if they didn't turn up at the airport, I guess. But yeah, I found that handy. Um, yeah, well, when you're traveling abroad, it's adapters and things like that you need that you sometimes forget,
Yeah,
and have to hastily try
absolutely.
and find some.
I think you're the first person that's ever talked about a tracker in their golf clubs. I think that's a brilliant tip. That's great, Gordon. We want to thank the folks at Kia, Weston Kia, for supporting our efforts on this show and supporting our travel tips. Like I said, we're talking with Gordon Moir today. Gordon, when things started to move for you, and I won't say they moved at a snail's pace, a little faster than a glacier, but it took a while to get up into the upper echelons. You tell some stories in the book about some of your staff not getting along, a little dust up here and there, people with bad attitudes. I think that's common in every business, especially if you're having to deal with people. But I found a couple of the stories fascinating, like one guy had to go out and take a nap in the bunker and stuff like that. So, h- how did you adapt to managing those types of personalities?
I mean, it took me a long time. I think there was the links used to be run by the local authority, and I think a lot of that attitudes, local authority attitudes,
Yeah.
were still there and ingrained in the staff. And I, 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 I was being a keen golfer. I was a member of the golf club. I would meet a lot of golfers, and I knew I wanted my golf course to be as good as it possibly could be, and I was determined to see it through. So it was really just hard work. I mean, yeah, I had a few dust ups. I had a lot of problems with staff, and there was a few times I nearly threw it in and looking for other jobs. But I persevered, and just through time managing to turn the staff over. Some guys left, and I would take in my own men.
Yeah.
Guys I knew from the industry and other places that I could trust, and just work it. But it did take, yeah, it took me 10 years.
Sure.
It took me. It took me. I mean, I was still working on guys even up until I retired. So I guess it took me 27 years, and I
What
still
was
never
Gordon?
got
What was the
complete.
toughest part of them, though? Was it the work ethic or the lack of knowledge? I'm not trying to berate anybody that works at St. Andrews, but again, a lot of people have this, and I'm one of them, have this image that St. Andrews is run perfectly. It's like I said, it's the holiest of holies for golf, and when you and and for the people that work there, it's another golf course, you know.
Well, yeah, a lot of the guys. There was very few of the team, and when I started, there would have been maybe somewhere around 30, just over 30. And there was very few of them. Lucky if I was 5 or 6 actually played golf. So they had no interest in the game. That they
Yeah.
loved the Open. They loved getting the golf course set up for the Open. They would do everything they could for that. But on a day-to-day basis, they really weren't that interested in the work. Um, and that goes not just for the younger members of staff. It went to some of the managers as well. They really didn't care. So they would go away after 4 hours and do other things, and nobody would notice that they weren't there. Their staff would notice. So well, if my boss isn't working, I'm sure I'm not going to work either. So um,
It
I
was it.
was, yeah, I was very different to that.
Was it was it tough to break that mold? I mean that model. Um,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I found your book fascinating, Gordon, because I've got a direction. I want to do the best job I can kind of guy. That's how you got to where you were at. But you had a lot of few people you had to elbow out
yeah,
and bring in new people along your journey there.
yeah. And that's basically what I had, and and that's a slow process.
Yes.
That doesn't happen overnight, and you've got to be careful. I mean, there were 2 or 3 people took us to court once they left. Even if they left on their own accord, they still took us to court for unfair dismissal and things like that. And yeah, I think we lost one case, and we settled one case out of court just because although we
Easier.
would have won it, we'd really just couldn't be done with the hassle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Was that your biggest challenge there? Or was your biggest challenge trying to update for example, the irrigation system and because as you
No,
describe it in the book, a lot of that stuff was old. I'll just put it that way, old. And
no. I mean, staff was by far and away the biggest challenge. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, other projects like the irrigation was a challenge, but it was a logistical challenge, and it was working around golf, and but everybody was willing to work together and make it happen. The director of golf would work with me. We would close holes, we'd close courses to get work done. So that was more logistics, but managing the staff was always the hardest challenge,
oh
and
God.
and finding staff.
Oh, that's horrible. I mean, that goes on today. I don't know about in St. Andrews or around the UK and in Europe, but over here they can't find.
Yeah,
They've got a
yeah,
good superintendent, but the workers are difficult to keep a hold of.
yeah. I mean, there's so many opportunities for them, better paid jobs, more sociable hours, not having to work weekends, the early starts, and then in St Andrews itself, it's the accommodation. The
Yes.
cost of accommodation is really expensive, so you have to traveling to town. If you're a youngster, you don't have a car, you can't get there by public transport for an early morning start. So it is tough.
I would think so. One of the I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, Gordon. Here, did the RNA and the Links Trust always get on well, or did they ever have where they disagreed and you became kind of the mediator on that?
Certainly as regards the golf course, because the RNA are only one of 9 clubs that use the facilities.
Yeah.
They don't own the golf course, so but obviously they have a big role to play. They have representatives on the trust, they have representatives on the links management committee. So they have a big role. And of course, with the Open Championship and the other events that they stage on the links, there is a lot of dialogue. But certainly as regards the golf courses, the condition, if they would like something done or they request some changes, that was always, from my point of view, very amicable.
Good.
Never really any issues. There were issues in other areas, merchandise and licensing, but nothing I feel it was very serious.
Well, I know that things like that. I've worked at a few professional tournaments over the years. Well, more than a few, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes the PGA Tour has one view of something, and the actual course maybe has a different view. And so, as far as the course setup and stuff, not a problem. But like you were saying, merchandise, even parking, different things like that, that can cause some discussion. It's not all bad, but it does cause discussion, and those lines are kind of then redrawn, if you will, kind of like doing a map. Who's got what control over what. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah. But I mean, we had a few challenges. They wanted a new television compound. The contractor's compound was getting bigger every time. The infrastructure, the where the bleachers, the grandstands were going, they were increasing in size. But again, it was all managed. We worked to a program which pieces of kit went up first, which was the last ones to come down.
Right.
Which were the ones that would interfere the least with golf were the last to go up and the first to come down. And I was, big areas of reinstatement, but it was all agreed beforehand who would pay for what and things such as that.
Oh yeah. Well, you have to. I mean, when you work on big broadcasts, big events like that, it all has to be kind of laid out, or you're kind of, it's not something you can do at the last minute. That's for sure. I've been talking with Gordon Moir here from his new book, The Greenskeeper. See, I did it again. I added that S in there for you, Gordon. The Keeper's Tales. I'll get it right eventually. Gordon ended up his career as the director of greenskeepers, etc., at St. Andrews and the Links Trust and all that. We've been talking about that. It's got a great book, but we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with Gordon, and Gordon is going to stick around for after hours. So don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. We're talking with Gordon Moir today, former director of greenkeeping at St. Andrews. How come you guys don't add the S in there? I mean,
I don't know. You guys added the S. We started it. We were greenkeeping before you.
That's true. That's true. That's true. We changed it, not you. What do you think the greatest thing was in your time at St. Andrews? Now you're retired and you're an ambassador for the Links Trust, et cetera. And so you really haven't gone too far, but when you were working there, what do you think your greatest moment was?
My greatest moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, from an achievement point of view, do you mean?
You tell me. It can be either somebody you met or we have to rule out golf scores. Okay, that we can't talk about that, Gordon. But maybe somebody you met, somebody you worked with, or you were really proud of your crew accomplishing something maybe before the Open or what have you, or the Dunhill.
I think overall, I think I was always pleased when we got the tournament finished.
Yeah.
We had a few challenges some years with the weather. We wind delay in 2010 and rain in 2015 were two big challenges. But I think the thing I'm probably most proud of, and it's got very little to do with greenkeeping actually, but it's more to do with how I built up the environmental side of the whole site,
Right.
not just the golf courses, but we also manage the famous beach that runs adjacent to the Jubilee course and the Eden Estuary. Or we don't manage the Eden Estuary, but it's a neighbour of ours, and we have a responsibility to look after the health of it. So I think when I went there was absolutely no environmental plans or management programs or such like. And I'll be fair, I really didn't have much interest in that back in 1991 either. But as time grew
Mm-hmm.
on, it became much more important, and I began to realize how much more important it was in the wider world. So I really took an interest in that, and had a lot of help from environmentalists that I worked with locally and nationally, gave me advice, would come and work with me. So I think the things we pulled together for that probably is my
You you,
proudest
ta-
thing.
Gordon, you talk a lot about that in the book, and I've gotten like a third of the way through my questions here, and so that we're going to pick it up in after hours. But when you talk about environmental concerns, and like I said, you were very cognizant of that as time went on, and you really tried to keep that in mind, to keep the health of the estuary, health of the beaches, health of the golf course, and that. Was that ever something a topic you had to convince your bosses of when you first got there and moving forward? 91, they weren't talking about this stuff very much.
No, there was nothing happening at all in '91, and then I mean, even when I started cutting back some of the gorse, which is a big shrub,
Right.
prickly shrub bushes, which is very invasive. I mean, the rest of the staff thought I was crazy because they'd never done that, and there was a lot of golfers would complain because they'd never realised um, that's so invasive and it was spreading so much. They thought we were damaging the course. So that took a lot of convincing, and that even 20 years on, you were still having to convince new people what you were doing was important. Um, so yeah, that was a challenge, but we did a lot of communication on different aspects and
Yeah.
just to bring it forward.
Well, like you said in the book, and I was surprised you get so many cubic meters or what have you of sand that you can use uh, on the course like that, and yet you've tried to extend the dunes, and it's a really delicate thing. I mean, we up where I live in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, you can't even go to the grocery store without somebody screaming about the environment to you, which I respect that. I'm not making fun of that. But I think from your descriptions in the book, Gordon, you've really had to walk kind of a fine line,
Yeah,
because some of them maybe prior to your time, if they took their dump trucks out there or whatever they hauled it in, and well, we need four more, just go get four more type thing, and didn't worry about it.
yeah. I mean, the links had always historically been allowed to take sand from the beach. But even when I started there, it was beginning to get a little more strict. And then eventually, I think I had just taken over in charge in 2000. We had to start applying for a license. So we had to monitor the beach, record how much sand we're using, and there was a limit to what we would take, and we had to renew that license every three years. And I
Wow.
think speaking to my predecessor, that's getting even more strict. But on the same token, we were actually doing work to increase the health of the beach and extend the dunes and you know
Yeah,
cause the beach to be healthier. So
it's all good. We're running out of time for the regular show, but Gordon is going to stick around for after hours because I got a lot more questions for him. Um, Gordon Moir, the name of the book is, see if I say this right now, Gordon. St. Andrews, The Green Keeper's Tale. Did I get that right this time?
that's it.
No additional S there. Looking after the most famous golf course in the world. It's a good read. There's lots of fun. I mean, we've barely touched on a lot of stuff here, but there's a lot of fun stories in it.
You
And
should be able to get it on Amazon in the US.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
going to see if we can help you get it into some more bookstores and stuff. Anyway, Gordon, thank you. Don't go away though. And folks, we'll be back next week with another edition of Girling at the Green. Until then, go out, play some golf, have some fun, and most of all, be kind. Take care, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we're talking with Gordon Moir. Gordon's new book, St. Andrews. I keep looking down because I have to make sure I say it right. St. Andrews, the Green Keepers, apostrophe S there, tale, looking after the most famous golf course in the world. Gordon and I found each other on LinkedIn, which I find fascinating here. And we were talking at the end of the other show about the concerns in the environment. And you touched on this, but here in this country now, in the States, Gordon, you can't hardly even dig a ditch without filing an environmental impact plan with whatever local, county, state authority, whatever it is there. Is that similar there at St. Andrews?
Pretty similar. Pretty similar. You can still make alterations to the golf course, but yeah, I guess anything to do with waterways.
Yeah.
There's lots of we call them triple SIs, so it's sites of special scientific interest. So there might be the Eden Estuary is a triple SI, and it's got a few designations actually on it, as does the West Sands Beach, which is quite an iconic beach in Scotland.
That's just fascinating to me. I mean, we now have, of course, we've got Bandon Dunes out here in Oregon, and we've got Gearhart, and we've got Chinook Winds Casino. They've all got courses right there in the dunes or overlooking the ocean. I haven't never talked to them about what they have to do environmentally to do that. Maybe I will one of these days. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, if you watch the Masters, which has just been over a couple of weeks now, they use a silica. It's not real sand like you go to the beach. It's a white, fluffy, makes a beautiful picture when they catch it with, guys hitting out of the bunker or whatever. But you guys use the sand from the beach, don't you?
We've used the sand on the beach on the old course up until recently, but we have started because of the problems we are extracting sand from the beach. They are starting to change some over. But again, that the sand that they're getting and previously has come from a dune.
Yeah.
Not actually it's actually in the west of Scotland, so it's about I guess it's about 150 miles away. So there's a transport cost, but it is inland, but it is very similar in particle size and shape to the local sand.
That you live next to the water, you live next to the beach. There's always, I'm not telling anybody who's ever watched one lick of golf on television from the British Open anything they don't know. There's always water, there's always wind. There's got to be a lot of loss too of sand. Kind of comes in and out with the tide. I'm being sarcastic, but it really does there, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have lost a ton of beach in St Andrews. In fact, all around the coast in Scotland, this winter has been devastating. There has been so much loss. We've had so many storms that have coincided with high tides. There are a few golf courses have got really serious erosion problems. But even at St Andrews, we lost quite a lot of sand. Dunes that we've built up over the last 15 years have been almost wiped out in the last 4 months.
Oh, wow.
But already in the last week, we've had a few light easterly winds that have been blowing the sand up and they're starting to accumulate again. And it's just a sort of ongoing process. So hopefully we are in a good place and we're in a lot better place than a lot of some pretty well-known golf courses around the east coast of Scotland. Serious danger losing greens and tees.
Gordon, Mother Nature always has the final say. I'll just put
it
that
does.
way.
It does. I learned a long time ago that you have to work with nature rather than fight it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk to you a little bit about course preparation for the Open, or and other tournaments, but the Open's the crown jewel, if you'll accept that.
Yeah,
Um, how far in advance? I mean, you're always working on the course. You're doing seating, you're changing a tee box from here to there, whatever's in the normal working routine of the year. But when you know there's going to be an Open coming up in July, how far in advance do you start on that? And then what are the, you don't have to delineate them all because it would take a long time, but what are the main things you look at? What happens when the RNA comes in and says we want to do this and this and this, and then you got the TV people to deal with. They want this shot or whatever. Uh, how much time and effort and does it take?
I guess we're lucky that St Andrews hosts the Open more than any other venue, generally every 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
So usually, um, by the end of the year, so the Open's in July. So by December, we've had a debrief with the RNA, and we've gone through what went well, what they'd like to improve on, from an agronomic point of view to course changes. And so I guess, we really start working 6 years out. They will come, providing we say if you want to make any changes,
Yeah.
give us at least a couple of winters. So, we can get the work in, everything will settle down before the tournament itself. But we generally start working out. We usually know about 5 years in advance. So we
Wow.
can start working on things then.
And
And again, if the TV guys are wanting something extra, the more warning they can give us, the better. What I have seen is plow down cables to get a camera into a bunker face because they want a particular shot, or dig a cable in because they want a little camera right in front of the first tee to get a worm's eye view of the players teeing off.
right.
So they've been done last minute, but generally we try and get everything knocked out at least one winter beforehand.
It's interesting because I kind of come from that world. We now have cameras with lenses on them. They're not very big, but that are, 40, 50 times stronger as far as focus than we did 25
Yeah,
years ago, like that.
yeah.
So I would think that they could actually have a distant position from the camera and do that, but they don't hire me to direct the Open on television, so that's just my thoughts. But yeah,
I mean,
they can.
I always took the view that it's the RNA, it's their tournament,
Mm-hmm.
and they tell us what they want as regards setup, how firm they want the greens, how fast they want the greens. If they give us the information, that's our aim, is to to get the golf course to that condition.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
not what we want to. We don't want the greens at 12 or 13 or 9 or whatever. It's what the RNA want the greens to run at. And
Speaking of the tournament, you mentioned a couple times. One time you wrote about your kids having lunch with Tiger. I thought that was cute because there's a picture of Tiger in the background, and they're sitting on a side of a dune or something, eating their lunch. But you've had a couple different occasions to cross paths with Tiger.
yeah, yeah. The first time was well, it was actually my wife met him before I did. She drove him
Oh
at the
yes, I remember that.
1995 Open when he was still an amateur. She didn't know who he was, and then in 2000, because he used to always be first out in the practice rounds, and we were repairing bunkers on the Wednesday morning when he was on the golf course, so I managed to sneak his autograph there. Um, and then I think it was 2000, 2005 when he won. The winner always comes into the sort of organising committee tent and has a few words, and we get our photograph taken with the Clara jug. So I'd managed to acquire a flag from 2000 when he won in 2000, and he barely got through the door now. had a flag in front of his face saying, "Could you autograph this, please, Tiger?" Which I got a severe reprimand for the following day because that was the protocol.
But you got your autograph.
But I got my autograph.
Ah, boy. Who is and I know I sent you this question, but who is the biggest pain in the ass regarding tour players, and who are the what you thought were the best to work with? Because you know, I've been around the game for a long time. I've been around a lot of pro tournaments. Some of them are absolutely divine people to work with. And
Yeah, I'm probably generalizing here, but I would have the guys who were at the top of the tree, the top players, the very top players,
sure,
I always found were the easiest and the friendliest. I guess they'd maybe nothing to prove to themselves or anybody else. Um, there's quite a few difficult ones. But again, you're generalizing. And I did always take the sort of view that they're at their work, they don't want to be disturbed.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I was never a great fan of Ian Poulter. I know he's a character and he did great in the Ryder Cup, but I never found him a particularly nice person. Um,
there's probably a few people that would agree with that,
yeah,
Gordon.
generally in the practice rounds, most of them were pretty chatty in the practice rounds.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, and yeah, if they're playing badly or have a poor score, then yeah, they can be pretty grumpy. But then I can I can be like that after I play golf as well. So
yeah. Well, I get that. You're you're now an ambassador for the Lynx. What does that entail? Do they fly you around in their private jet and say, Gordon?
no. I'm not an ambassador for the Lynx at all. No, I've cut my ties with the Lynx completely.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I play my golf there, and yeah, and I still do. I'll do a couple of presentations, but I don't really enjoy doing that. And then I try and sort of distance myself from the Lynx when I do that because I don't think it's fair to be claiming I still work there or still they're still doing things the way I did. Things have moved on in the 5 years I've been retired. So I don't think
Okay.
it's fair to the Lynx or to the current
Sure.
staff to
Sure.
do that to do
No.
that.
So how do you spend your days now?
Walking the dog, playing golf, looking after the grandchildren, looking after the garden. Oh, it's amazing how easy it is to fill in your day.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
I've got involved in one of the local Rotary clubs, so that I've always got something to keep me busy.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to make sure you weren't just standing in the corner there, Gordon.
No chance. There's no chance of that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few fun questions and we'll see how you answer them. Okay.
Yep.
Um, if you could play a round of golf with one of your golfing heroes, who would it be? They don't have to be upright anymore. I mean, this is kind of a
Yeah.
esoteric question there.
Yeah. I'd probably say Sevi.
Would you? Yeah.
Sevi or Lee Trevino.
Uh, Trevino's still talking as much as he ever did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I still see the odd clip of him on social media.
he's pretty funny. So, Gordon, if we declared you the supreme leader of golf for one day, just one day, what would you, as supreme leader of golf, decree?
Oh, I'd take the RNA and the USG line and reduce the distance. Either reduce the distance the ball goes or change the club head so people aren't hitting it so far.
There you go.
Because
Okay.
these courses are all becoming on you know too long. You can't keep extending golf courses.
No, but I think you've got an advantage over there because of, and like Bandon Dunes, anything that's on the coast and you've got the wind, um, that kind of evens the playing field. You know, the day when it's all calm and dry and everything, and they're knocking it out, you know, they come in at 9 under or something. Next day it rains sideways. They don't do
Yeah.
that. So, like I said, Mother Nature has her way. Anyway, let's keep going here. Um, besides your book, do you have a favorite golf book?
A favorite golf book. I've got a few, but I don't know which one would. I'm halfway through reading one of Henry Longhurst's cuttings. They've compiled all these articles he published. I'm halfway through reading it, so it's quite good. Autobiographies I've read, golfers. Yeah, Ben Hogan's one I liked. I think probably the older ones I've found
Yeah.
more interesting than the current ones. Hogan and Bobby Jones are the two I
Oh yeah.
probably.
Yeah. Gordon, if you could dine with a historical figure, who would it be and what would be on the menu? And they don't, again,
Boy,
they're probably no longer standing upright, but as far as a historical figure, but who would it be and what would you serve them?
historical figures. If we were to talk to the world of golf, then yeah, I'd probably go and say somebody like Seve, Tom Watson, Ben Hogan.
Yeah,
Might be a bit dry conversation with Ben Hogan, right enough. Davino again. Non-golf, probably Nelson Mandela. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, some of those kind of guys. And what would be in the
sure,
menu?
sure.
Well,
I
providing they're not vegetarian, I'd probably have seafood for starters and steak for main.
there, yeah. Now you're talking my language here, Gordon. My language. Um, with Hogan, I know some of the people that wrote books about him. I actually saw him once when I was in Texas. Didn't speak to him. I just saw him eating lunch. Um, but I think maybe I don't know if he drank single malt at all. I think he was more of a bourbon guy or a martini guy. But couple three fingers of single malt, he probably loosen up a little bit. Talk to you.
Well, that's fine. We would go on well then because I quite enjoy single malt.
That was one of my next questions. What's your favorite single malt? I've got a closet full of them here. So,
Oh, I'll need to come and visit you. It really pushed me. I would probably say Balvenie, but anything from the sort of Speyside region of
yeah,
Scotland.
I'll have to tell you,
Uh,
I'm not proclaiming my knowledge here, Gordon, but 10 or 12 years ago, we just moved to this community we lived in. I was thinking about retiring from broadcasting and stuff and my other work. So I got a job at the local liquor store, which is fine. And I wrote a manual for them on scotch because they could tell you a lot about vodka. They could tell you a lot about bourbon. They could tell you a lot about gin, go right down the line, but they didn't know sick 'em about scotch that much because their selections at that time was Johnny Walker, uh, maybe some Doers, maybe one of the McAllens, and that was about it. Now I don't take credit for any of that, but over the years, now you go in there, they've got a whole wall of single malts. I mean, a literal
yeah.
wall of it, and I'm very impressed now. See, so I like that. It's all good. Um, What was the toughest part of your job over the years? I mean, you talk about all kinds of different things in the book, but the one that you just maybe not dreaded, but you just like, I'd really rather not do this.
Oh, we had to meet. We had to meet twice a year with the representatives of the local clubs who weren't on the links management committee, but they thought they should have been, and they always had. They were set up to have discussions with the links about how the local club's gone. So
Got
the
it.
Greens committee and the course managers and myself would meet with them twice a year, and
Okay.
I never really looked forward to them. Especially there was a period there when their chairman um, wasn't the nicest of people to deal with. The other chairman I sort of got on okay with. They were more understanding, they were more pleasant. But that particular chairman, I never really looked forward to that. Um,
Kind of like,
and I think you could I'm the type of guy that I couldn't hide that as well. So it was, there was one fiery meeting in particular, which was,
I got it. I got it. So, Gordon, if we put all your skills to music, what would the music be?
oh, I guess some song it sounds like the Rolling Stones or something like that.
There you go.
Or that means soul. I quite like some soul.
Okay. All right. Um, what was the worst? And I don't mean to have this come off in a negative connotation, but the worst tournament there that you ever worked on. Some reason it just didn't come together. Maybe it was the weather, maybe it was the equipment broke, maybe your staff ended up drinking too much and falling asleep in a
Oh,
bunker. I mean, whatever. But what's the
well,
toughest one you had to deal with?
funnily enough, the the worst one was also the best one. I think I've got this right. I would need to look at the book, but the the first Ladies Open we had in 2007
Mm-hmm.
was the best tournament that I was involved in. I just it was the first time they had come and had a professional tournament on the old course. I mean, I think there had been some smaller tournaments way back in history, but you know, to have such a prestigious tournament, a major, in 2007, they were just so pleased to be there. The LPGA who ran it were a joy to work with. They were very, very, very good. But we did have an incident one of the nights where we'd allowed guys to stay down at work. We'd actually hired in cabins for them to stay in, and they some of them had got a bit out of hand one night, and there'd been a bit of fighting, and so
Yeah.
we had to deal with that. And one of them got fired, and so that was an unpleasant one. But it was funny because it was actually the best tournament. But apart from that incident,
Gee, many. I can't say I've been there and done that as far as got fired, but I have been to tournaments where later on things got out of hand at, you know, midnight type thing like that. It's all good.
yeah, the very last one was a good one. It was the seniors British Open, and again it was much more relaxed. And there was a full scale party afterwards for all the volunteers, and Tom Lehman and all people turned up and joined in, so it was kind of quite a surprise.
There you go. So I know somebody's going to ask me because this is not a question I ask very often, but what clubs do you play?
I have a Callaway driver, I have and 3 wood, I have a Titleist hybrid, and I have Mizuno irons, and I
So
have an Odyssey putter.
you gotta, yeah, that's okay. We've been talking with Gordon Moir, the author of St. Andrews, the Green Keeper's Tale. Hey, I got that one right again there,
Yep.
Gordon. Looking after the most famous golf course in the world. Um, it's an interesting book. It's got a lot of behind the scenes stories from Gordon's, what were you, 24 years there or something?
Yeah, I was 27 years in total. I was in charge for 18 overall when I
Yeah,
was there for 27 years.
that's a long time. But there's nothing I could think of better to go out and look at every day than the golf courses at St. Andrews.
That depends on the weather.
Yeah. But you can find Gordon's book on Amazon. We're going to see if I can help him get it out in a few more golf course shops and pro shops and that. And Gordon, we thank you very much for taking the time to be here on Grilling at the Green.
Oh, Jeff, thanks very much for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun. I really enjoyed it. We're going to be back next week with another edition of After Hours and the regular show. So go out, like we always say, play some golf, take care, and try to be kind if you can. See you next week. Hold on, Gordon.